Welcome to Be in Tune. Join me, your host Darien, and my producer Joab, as we have conversations that deepen our connection with our higher power, ourselves, and the world around us. So, get ready to tune in, turn up that volume, and welcome to the Be in Tune podcast. What up, everybody? It's me. I might as well just go with that intro. What up, what up, what up? Hello, everyone. I am excited for today's podcast, but let me just tell you what this podcast is. So welcome back to the Be Into podcast with me, Darien, and Joab, my producer, Joab. Joab, say hello. Oh, there you
What's
go.
up?
I love it. I love it. That's going to be the intro moving forward. I love this. But I am very excited for today's interview. I know I say that a lot, but this person I'm going to interview, I just happen to know them their entire life. And we grew up in the same house. We share the same mom and dad, right? I would say we shared the same hair, but homie decided to just appear different for today's
New hair. Who this?
Who is this?
Wow.
Yes, that our own mother didn't recognize her for 5 seconds. For 5 seconds.
Oh, dang.
That kills me. That just kills me. So without further ado, let's just give a warm round of applause to I'm going to say it just once, this one time, my baby sister, Adriana Santana.
I was not expecting not like MTV.
Joab, that was amazing. Joab, that was amazing.
Got you.
That's so funny. Hello. It is an honor to be here.
Sissy, hi.
Hey.
Thank you for taking time for being here. I know you busy. You booked and busy. I was like,
I don't ever want to say that. I'm not.
Okay. So give me a moment as I explain to the audience who you really are, right? Other than my sister. So Audrey, as I lovingly call her, Adriana, but really Adriana's actual name is Adriana. That is what she heard growing up. That is what everyone in our family calls her. Adri. They even say Audrey with a Spanish accent. It's Adri, right? One time she came home and someone called her Aid. I was like, what is an Aid? That's not it. That's not your name.
It's because in when you're trying to explain your nickname is Audrey, but then in English your name is Adriana. So that's a whole. So it's Adri came off of that. It's a whole, yeah.
It was a whole thing. But Adri, I really wanted her to be on the pod because I wanted to talk about who she is. So my sister is a speech language pathologist, right? And I'll allow you to add the acronyms and all of that because, girl, I get a little confused. So there's that. And she is also a worship leader, right? For churches, right? If you look up New Hope Fulton, right?
Not you putting.
Did I say it wrong? Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Or
So
wrong?
no. Yeah. New Hope. They use. I think when you look it up on YouTube, it's New Hope Fulton pops up the church. Yeah, it's New Hope Fulton Seventh-day Adventist Church. Yeah.
Welcome for the plug. You're welcome for the plug, right?
Oh, they should be saying you're welcome to the plug.
That's true. They should be saying. It's anywho. If you look them up, yes, I'm going specific, Audrey. I'm going specific. If you look her up, you'll see my lovely sister's face in a lot of their videos because you're a worship leader there. You're one of the many talented worship leaders that they have there.
Ones,
yeah, that team is impressive. They're phenomenal. So, Sissy, I really wanted to just talk about that. A lot of questions, right? Did you know that once singing was going to be a thing in your life? Did you know that you are going to get interested in speech language pathology? How do you make the two work, right? just kind of like give us your story, your, like how are you just this incredible? Like, how did we get here?
Wow. This is a loaded question.
But does it make sense? Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. So, originally when I was before college, I wanted to be a clinical psychologist for soldiers who suffer from PTSD. That was actually like the first thing I wanted to do. I had seen like the movie like The Hurt Locker. If anybody's ever seen it, it's basically about watching like following a soldier through war and then their transition back home. And I remember feeling like so impacted by that story. So that's what I wanted to do. And then when I was a senior in high school, our grandfather, before he passed, he'd suffered from like multiple strokes, and they were looking for a bilingual speech language pathologist to work with him. And our mom at the time was like, "Oh, you should be a speech therapist. Like, they need people who speak Spanish, like who understand whatever." And I was like, "Mommy, I don't want to teach people how to speak all day. Like, that's not what I want to do." But then fast forward to when I was a sophomore in college, I was enjoying psychology for what it was, but I don't think I was feeling passionate about it. And I think for psychology or like just clinical mental health counseling in general, you can see results in people's change of behavior and whatnot. But I feel like for me, I wanted to say something even more tangible, something that's even more measured. And I remember previously really loving like reading in English. Like I loved reading books and like editing and like all that stuff when it came to the composition and whatever. So I had a friend that was like, "Oh, if you really like English, you should look into speech language pathology." And I was like, "Okay, like I guess." And they let me log into like one of their student accounts because they were in that major to see speech therapy sessions being done. And I was like, wow, this is actually like intriguing. I saw like some kids receiving therapy, some adults, and like geriatric. And I remember going to have like a meeting with the department head, and I was like, Lord, like if this, because I'm a sophomore at this point and I really didn't want to graduate late. So I was like, Lord, if I can change my major and it doesn't like delay my graduation date, then I'll change it. If not, then I was prepared to do it in grad school. Like, would have been extra time, but I was prepared to do that. And so when I get in there, I'm having this whole conversation, and then they were like, I was like, they were like, "Are you bilingual?" And I was like, "I am." They're like, "We could make money." I was like, "Oh, I mean, we'd love to hear that." I was like, all this stuff. But I was like, "I'm just concerned about graduating on time." She's like, "Oh, well, we have a 2-year transfer program. So you just have to, you take all these classes within these 2 years and all the requirements and you graduate on time." And I was like, okay. So that was kind of like how speech path became a thing. And then even when I went into grad school, you still don't fully know if you want to do what you want to do until you do it. So like sometimes people get into these things and then they're like, actually, like, never mind. Like I had some people who are like star-studded students, but when they got into the grad program, they just didn't feel connected and passionate. So then they just ended up leaving grad programs. So I remember feeling hesitant about it because I was like, well, I'm going to try to do this. I do feel like the Lord's leading me in this direction. And as I was going throughout grad school, I realized I do have an actual passion. So that's kind of how speech path happened. And then when it came to singing was something that I was, I guess, done my whole life. It sounds so like corny. I feel like every singer sings that. Like, I've been singing my whole life. But when I was younger, my mom used to do special music all the time for church. And I guess there was a song she used to sing all the time. And when you're a kid, you obviously get like, you can get a melody line and like sing along. So I guess I memorized like the chorus of the song, sang it. And then my mom was like, oh, she can like do this in church. So like, I guess she got up there and she was like, my daughter's going to join me. And I think at first people were like, oh, haha, hee hee, whatever. But I guess it was like a video of me like running up. And I think it was like one or two. And then like the mic is like so huge in my hand and I'm like singing along with her. So I guess that was like the first like memory or the first time like of me singing. And then when mommy got older, she was like, you know what? I don't want to sing that much anymore. So I'm just going to push at the end of this thing. She'll like, so anytime they would ask her to be like, oh, can you sing a special music? My mom would be like, no, but my daughter can. So that's what happened. I think when I turned 10, I was doing it all the time. And then my senior year of high school, my parents put me in for 1 year of singing lessons. I'd done like violin, so I was already connected like music wise for a bit of time. From like 7, I started violin. But I think they could tell I had a bit more of a bigger passion for singing. And they had a recommendation from a church member to be like, hey, like you should put her in lessons to like really refine her voice. So I did that for a year. And then when I went to college, I went to Andrews, and they had Deliverance Mass Choir there. And I remember this was the first time I was exposed to actually like singing gospel. I think it's like we grew up listening to like Kurt Franklin, Mary Mary, Ty Tribbett, all that stuff. But going there was the first time I was like singing these parts. So I learned how to like be an alto and like how to sing to a harmony. And it's like one of those things I'm like still not the best at when it comes to like gospel singing harmonies, because they're like super good, like super tight knit. But it was my first time there. So I would sing a lot for choir. Then I became a section leader. So then once you become a section leader, you kind of get exposed to singing on praise team more. And so then you end up being like one of the 3-part harmonies in the back, was you have a main praise leader. Did that for a bit of time. And then when I was a junior, I felt like there was a bit of a push for me to be a main leader. And I was kind of like, I don't know about that. Like, I felt like I was a little bit, I could say like insecure and like intimidated by these great singers. Like, they're just singing down. And especially if you're singing in gospel spaces, like you're with singers. Like, you know what I mean? Like, these are people who like really know like the note they're looking for, where to place it, how to be like spontaneous. So I felt really intimidated by that. So I was like, maybe that's just not my ministry. Like, I'm just meant to be in the back. Like, that's just what I'm supposed to do. But then one of the chaplains there at the time, they're like, I feel like you should move forward with this. And I was like, I don't know about that, sir. Like, I was like, I don't think so. He's like, something, the Lord's really impressing upon my heart to tell you that like, you need to move forward in this season. I was like, why was it I just don't? Like, why was I just don't move forward in this season? Like, I just don't. This is not for me. Then he responded with, well, if you don't move forward in this season, then you're going to feel like, because he's kind of mentioned it was going to be a season of uncomfortability. And I was kind of like, I kind of want to be uncomfortable. And he's like, if you don't move forward in this season of uncomfortability, then if you stay where you are, you're going to feel like, I think it was like a lack of progression and feel like stagnant. And so I was like, so if I stay, I feel unhappy. If I move forward, I'm going to feel a little bit unhappy because I'm going to be uncomfortable. He's like, kind of, yeah. So I was like, all right, cool. So with that advice, I was like, okay, let me put myself a little bit more out there. So I did like a Vespers for like the main like university Vespers. And I did like an impact for those who like know Andrews, like the BSCF Vespers. That's a Black Student Christian Forum. I did that. It was kind of like my first time really being exposed. And prior to singing like as a main leader, I think I really felt like a lot of nerves when you sing, because singing is a very vulnerable state you're putting yourself in. Like, you're sharing a gift, and like you're sharing something about yourself. And if you mess up, like everybody like knows it's you, you know? But when it came to worship leading, I found that if I really was like praying beforehand and really surrendering, I was just not nervous. And it's kind of the first time that I did not feel big nerves. So
wait, hold on. We have to stop you here, because that video that you're referring to, right? That you said that there's a video of me running down the aisle of church. Yes, I remember seeing you run down. I remember everyone laughing because one thing about Audrey, when she was a baby, she used to mean mug everyone.
Okay, that's not fully true, because there's pictures of me smiling with people.
With your mother.
Yeah.
With your mother.
Dang.
If your name was Angela Santana, you were just like, you were A-OK in Audrey's book, right? No, but I say that because even as you were running down the aisle, you were just like, once you saw mom, you were just like, okay, I'm good. And then once mom picked you up and carried you, and mom said, you want to sing Vuelve, that's like return, that was the name of the song, you nodded. And then this Audrey that we see today, the one that has the smile on her face, the one that has like that energy, that's who came out. And this is so awesome that we're talking about this, because now I get to like really reflect on this as like an adult and as a therapist. And that's why I could say like I really saw like that little personality, your personality come out, and like really saw that singing wasn't just going to be like a one-time thing that you were going to do as a little baby. And Joab, she couldn't pronounce any of the other words, but when it came to that chorus, my little girl sang a little heart out.
I was one.
She was one, and the microphone was almost as big as her.
I'm crying.
No, but it's so cute, and I remember the elephant, and like she's just like singing. So, first of all, let me ask you a very simple question: do you think it was the best thing ever that mom did, which was to quote unquote retire early from singing and to give you the microphone?
Oh yeah, I mean, mommy was very much like an uplifter. So like for me, when you're born here speaking and singing in Spanish, you get a little bit like intimidated just because like you're not on the island, you're not really like sharp when it comes to your Spanish skills. And like I think for a long time I was always very reserved. And like that kind of like stunted my progression a little bit. But mommy was so like for any opportunity for me to sing that she would like take the time, sit with me, tell me how to sing certain words. And so like singing in Spanish at first really helped with like my confidence, because if you can sing all these songs in Spanish, singing in English just feels like really easy.
Sure.
But yeah, no, she was very like a big cheerleader. So I think she helped boost my confidence to the point where I don't think I realized the self-consciousness of singing until later. Because like when you get older, then you start becoming more self-conscious. But when I was younger, like there's church people remember me getting out my little stool and then stepping on it, singing my song, and then putting my stool back. Like, because she was just like, you can go do that. You can do that. So I think that was honestly, yeah, I wouldn't be where I'm at now. I guess even confidence wise, if she didn't push at the time.
You totally skipped over a very important thing that happened in your childhood and that helped to develop your singing. You were actually part of a band. You skipped your first original band. I know Audrey's looking at me like, what?
Like, oh, did you about like us?
Yes, girl.
Well, yeah. You asked me to answer a really long question. So I was trying not to go like within the hills and valleys. Like whoever's listening probably like, she took the long answer. That's the short answer I was trying to get. Yes, no, when we were younger, since Darien played guitar, mom would always have us, we'd always did like little duets. So me singing and her playing guitar. So Darien was technically the first accompaniment I've ever sang with. And I think honestly, because I had to sing with her for so many years, I say this now, when I have to listen and sing for music, I feel like I hear exactly like where I'm supposed to come in, because I had to do that to her strumming. Like when you just have a guitar, you really have to be like super like on it to understand, like, okay, this is when I come in. So I think that was definitely when it came to like music understanding and like placement of like just sonically like hearing a song and knowing exactly where you're supposed to come in and all the intricate parts, that was developed from all the times we would sing. I would sing with her in church.
That experience helped me, is helping me now with like that community praise team that I have. When it comes to like helping my singers out, because I'm not a singer. I always tell people that I'm not the singer. Audrey's the singer. I can tell you what sounds nice and what doesn't sound nice. And even with like my singers now, just having that experience with you of just being like, okay, when I play this, when you hear this note or when you hear me strum this way, like that's when I want you to come in, to be able to like communicate. That experience that you and I had of just like constantly doing special music, I felt like at one point, I don't know if it felt like this for you, but I feel like at one point we were just like, we were booked and busy. It felt like mom and dad were like low-key our managers, especially dad.
Oh yeah, because we were connected every single time dad would preach.
Yeah,
we would sing. So like there was that. So every single time that would happen, and then people would be like, "Can you sing for special music? Can you sing for that?" Because they would see us do it for him every time. Yeah,
it was like the Santana show. Like you get a sermon and a special music. Might as well book these people. That's what it felt like.
They'd be like, "Las Hermanas Garcia" every single time, and you're like, "Hi, this is us." We pop out, sing, and leave.
Yeah. Wait, did you say Garcia or Santana?
No, they remember in the Spanish they always say Garcia because of mommy.
Did they?
Yeah, they always be like, "Las Hermanas Santana Garcia" or Garcia. They always do that.
Oh yes,
because it's like the mother's maiden. That would be our last name. Same thing with like our other cousins. They would do Santana, even though their last name in, like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
So in Dominican culture, it's not uncommon for a child to have the father and the mother's last name, but the mother's maiden last name is at the end of the child's name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because in DR, if you want to find someone, it's always through the mother's last name.
Interesting.
So they would do that. There would always be like the Santana, like the Garcia sisters or Santana Garcia. Like it was always like that.
Wow, you really picked up on it. I was just too busy, like, can I get a proper microphone? I wasn't even noticing.
Never, girl. That also preps me. When you can't, you have to sing in those circumstances, you could sing anywhere.
No, for reals. Like when I hear about these like interviews, like with singers, and when they talk about like where they sang, or musicians where they played, like the dive bars or this place that only had like one working microphone and all that, I'm like, I feel like you and I lived that lifestyle, or at least. Audrey, whenever you have your true Hollywood story, because you're a famous singer, you know, you could talk about that. Like, it's just
Girl.
like, Audrey's like, I'm not trying to be a singer. I'm just trying to do my job and sing for the Lord.
The Lord will have to set that path if he wants me to do this full time.
If Maverick City called, would you be like, yes? If Maverick City called, what would you do?
Well, I would be like, why are you calling me? I'd rather be like,
wrong answer.
Thank you, Joe.
Here's the thing. You can't always hop on every opportunity. So I really want to know, why are you calling me?
Okay.
You gotta know. You gotta know, because like anybody could be asking you to sing anywhere. I think from being in this area that I live in now, like so many churches are like, can you sing here? Can you sing here? Can you sing here? And you can always say yes, but you got to really choose your nose. Like, why would I do that? Like, what's the, you know what I mean? Not even for my own benefit, but like, what is the benefit for that church if I go and do something, you know? I'd be very flattered. This is not to say that I would not be very flattered, and I would want to say yes. Like, obviously, like Naomi Rain's like voice is like amazing to me. But I would want to know, like, why me? Like, why are you calling me? Especially as somebody who's not even like up in there like that, you know?
So, okay. Well, it's good to know. Very wise of you to be like, I'm not just going to say yes just to say yes, but thank you for, inside of you, you're like, but thank you for asking.
No, I'd be like, this is the most honored. I'd be like, they called me. Like, that would be like my story forever. Like, I would always talk about that.
So with your with the confidence being built, right, and all those years, like mom would say, yes, Audrey can sing, right? Audrey can do this special music and all that. Interesting. We fast forward many years later, right? You're in college, right? You're a junior in college. You even I remembered when you joined DMC and you came back and we had to do a special music for Christmas break. Your voice, I was like, oh my gosh, did it stretch? Like it
does that, yeah.
Yeah, it was impressive how your range, like it stretched, your tone, your confidence, even your ability to harmonize. I can't stand you because I can't do that. I'm like,
girl, it's very like elementary. I feel like it's so, there's people who are like so good. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yes, but you know, when you were really in that season, Joe, I kid you not, every song, like we would be driving, Audrey had to add a harmony. I was like, but at one point I was like, just let the song be. Just let the song be.
Sometimes it's practice. Because if you're just singing along, you're like, well, what would it be if I were to sing this part? What would it be if I were to? Yeah. So sometimes, a lot of times, it's just like me trying to get the ear.
That's true. Like, but you're just a songbird too, because there would be TV shows. There was this TV show that we used to watch, and it had a particular theme song, but it had no lyrics. This chick added lyrics to the theme song, and every single time we watched an episode, she'd be singing her version.
Oh yeah.
Of the things. I think it was the Adventures of Lois and Clark. It's the theme song. The intro is just like it's just a musical. It's just music. And Audrey is like singing.
I don't even remember now
the characters, like names and everything. I was like, are we going to do this for every episode? Every episode. That I was like, if they ever decide to come out, they should just hire you so you could just sing that theme song for them.
Might as well, yeah.
Yeah. So, but yes, I remember when you came back from college, like your voice, like, wow, amazing. Right. So DMC is such an amazing experience for you and very much needed, right? For you to be able to do what you do today. But I digress. I'm sorry. I'm taking forever to get to the point. As I said earlier, interesting how mom pushing you to do these special music, you built a confidence throughout the years, right? But then we fast forward to your junior year of college. All of a sudden, you're getting this encouragement to step out and do something even more with your singing talents, right? To work, to lead and worship more, and your initial reaction was, no, I don't know if I can do this. That imposter syndrome really kicked in. So, can you like just talk a little bit more about that anxiety that you experienced and what that imposter syndrome looked like for you? Because it looks different for everyone, and I think it's really important just for people just to hear someone's perspective on this anxious experience that we can have.
So I think for me, like, it was a mixture of like anxiety and also like just fear of like embarrassment. Just because like some people, like, I think, I'm trying to think about this a nice way of like saying it. I'm not trying to be shady, but I think some people put themselves out there to be worship leaders, or even to be pastors, even be in these type of roles when nobody asked them to. So like
Ooh.
some people, I'm like, this is not your lane, like, and that's okay, like that's fine. So
That's
you
real.
don't want to be that person that is like up in there, like, okay, well, like it's my moment, and you're like, is it supposed to be your moment? So like, I think that's the initial kickback where you're like, are you why me, like why should I do that, like I don't have this type of, like, you find out all the reasons because you almost are like trying to beat people to the punch of what you think people might be saying. So like I think a lot of times that's where my brain went at first, of like, well, I can't do it because I don't have like this amazing range, or I have a difficulty like with harmonies, or like um I can't do this many runs. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so you end up finding all the reasons before other people tell you those reasons, or like talking on your back with those reasons. You know what I mean? So I think that's where it was stemming from, that anxiety of it, of like that fear of like, well, I can embarrass myself up here and all that. And um, I think it's like just like the regular fear of failure. Because even before I did the first time I led, I think I prayed like 3 different times with 3 different people because I was like shaking. I was so like, oh my gosh, I'm going to put myself out there and could go really bad. Because if it goes well, then it's great. If it goes bad, then it's like, you're like, I just want to hide under a rock. And like, obviously now you can't be like that life or death about these things because like you're going to have great sets, you're going to have okay sets. Like you got to keep it pushing, whatever. But that's where it was coming from. Like that fear of like, well, I think it's this overall fear of like rejection, of like putting yourself out there, feeling rejected. And I definitely have had an issue with that in other aspects of my life where I won't do something because I'm like, what if I look stupid, or somebody would think I'm going to look stupid, and they're like, I'm going to be rejected from this thing. So yeah, that's where it was like coming from.
So let's continue with the story then. How did you get past that?
I feel like when I did the first time, I was kind of like, let me just do these opportunities. Let me see if this is terrible. Then I just won't do it again. And then it went okay. It went okay. And I went okay because I think really like when I was like, Lord, like you need to take this. Like, this is not about me. This is about you. Like, let me just be a vessel. I really do think that the Lord really transformed me in that way of like taking the reins. Because I think that when you think you're in control, that's where like a lot of like the second guessing, the anxiety, and all the nervousness comes from. But then when you have somebody else in control, then you're kind of just in for the ride. Does that make sense? So like, if I'm no longer driving the car, I'm just a passenger, then obviously I can reach any destination without worrying about like all the things you have to think about when you're driving.
Right.
So I think that's really what it was. And then there would be times where I'm like, I don't know, like maybe I'm just like, I think I'm supposed to be doing this, but I'm really not supposed to. I would have people really being like, oh wow, like I really enjoy like you singing, like are you to sing again? And so like hearing that feedback from people that I wasn't even like close to, I think it was like the Lord's way of being like, don't get any other ideas, like you're supposed to keep doing this. So I think after a bit of time of feeling those like affirmations, and I was like, okay, let me continue. But like in terms of overcoming it, I think it's one of those things that you kind of like have to wrestle with for a while. Because even now, there'll be times where I'm like, am I supposed to be doing here? Like, am I supposed to be here? I did like a worship night like a month ago, and somebody that was more seasoned than me and was like a mentor to me. He was like also in charge too, and I kept like looking to him, and he was like, "Listen, like you gotta look to me. Like you can do this. Like you have like been putting in the hours." And I have friends now that are like, Adriana, like you've been doing this for a while. So even now, like I'll have times where I'm like, am I supposed to keep doing this? Am I supposed? So like, it's still like I think a thing you overcome each time.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Like, also, like, kudos to like your friends and mentors too, because I think a big part that we don't really talk about as much as like going through like the fears and imposter syndrome, like, is like how isolating that really is,
Yeah.
But kudos to you and your support system, like for pouring and speaking life into you during that, because like I could imagine, I guess, like how much you were drowning in like the fears or like the anxiety of like all the thoughts spiraling in your head, but like having friends speaking to you and be like, no, like you've done this, you've been doing this. So yeah, that's so important.
Without them, I really don't think like I don't know if my like closest friend Jamaica, she has been like, I think singing now in the DMV, like you get to sing in different churches, and so then as a singer, I feel like sometimes I don't want to be like too out there, like that person that seems like too self-involved, like that I'm just singing all the time. I'm like, people are gonna get sick of me. And she was very much like, you're trying to like people like hearing people do what they do best. Like they like hearing this. They feel touched by it. Like this whole thing of like people like being like, oh, why she's always up there. They want to see you up there because they know, oh, this is going to be a guaranteed good worship experience because she's connected. Like we want to hear that. So like she was very much another person too who was like, you're not overdoing it. You could be underdoing it. Like she's like, you can need to like be probably doing it more. Because then that too, like it's in your head of like, what are people's opinions? But all my friends have been so like just the same thing over and over again of being like, listen, we're gonna look to you. Like I think there was like one point where some of us all together and we didn't have a leader and they kept looking at me and I was like, hi. And they're like, you were the most experienced. We're going to keep looking at you. I'm sorry. I was like, no, it's fine. And I, at first, like, I was like, dang, like, why are you all looking at me? But then you almost feel like very honored that like, these are people who have been singing since their whole lives singing, like, cause you have to like, to hold down like a 3-part harmony, you have to have really strong, solid people. So you end up really admiring their like artistry, their singing ability. So if you're looking at me as somebody that can guide you in any way, like it's so flattering and it's so like affirming. So like even in those aspects too, like when I put myself out there to do some worship leading like experiences, having 1 or 2 friends on the set with me who I know is like cheering me on. And mind you, everybody else on the team, they're very nice too. But that knows you personally, that is like, you got this, like don't even worry about it. It really does like wonders to like you like understanding like your purpose, I think, a little bit more, and then pursuing like your why, like all that stuff. So
100%. That makes a world of difference, right? The supports that you have, the mentors that you have in your life, like that really, like I said, it makes a world of difference. If we think about people who have done such great things in the world, I promise you there was always someone in their corner, like someone who was either mentoring them or someone who was supporting them to help them keep going. One story that kind of is popping into my mind, and this isn't like kind of like a mentor-ish relationship, but they say that Martin Luther King used to call this amazing singer, and he would call her at like in the middle of the night and be like, I need you to do that thing. And it's just for her to sing a certain gospel song because he needed that. It was his way of hearing the voice of God. So talk about that being such a huge compliment. I think that's what Jamaica's also referring to too, Audrey. Like when she's like, people want to see you because they may want to see you not only because you sound nice and right and you're engaging, but also you may be just exactly that tool, that vessel that is connecting them to the Almighty, which that is the whole point of all of this. So I would think of it from that perspective too. It's like, oh, maybe I'm helping them connect with the Lord. And if and I'm looking at your face, you're like, I don't think you thought of it that way.
No, it makes me think of like somebody I had sung somewhere and I posted like a live stream like quick. Like somebody took a snippet and someone's like, where is this live stream? I'm like, oh, here it is. and they're like, oh, I just love watching your worship. So it made me think about that. You saying that made me think about like, I love watching your worship. And like when you switch it that way, we're like worship leaders. I think a lot of times worship leading has been thought of like you're leading the congregation, and so you have to get them to sing. Like you have to get them to sing. Like that's been like a thing before. But I think it was like, what is it called? Throne centered worship, where you are focused on like worshiping at the throne. That by you doing that, it gets other people to feel inspired to do that. So that's so like, you saying that made me think about that girl's comment, because I was like, I was really like touched by that, because half the time I'm like, I'm not looking at anybody. My eyes are like closed. I'm like really trying to just focus on like what I'm doing. That like if you're so focused on it, that other people like feel like that. So it's so true. They do feel touched by that.
Funny little story. When I was in Chile, I was talking to one of the ladies about my family, because the ladies I was with, they got very curious about me. And then of course, our friend Nadia goes into like her PR mode, as I like to call it, and she goes, yes, and she has a little sister, and her sister can sing. Then Nadia goes, find me Audrey's YouTube channel right now, get me a video right now so I can show it to you. And I showed the lady your Instagram, and it's just one video, and I just picked the latest one. I was like, okay, oh look, she's singing here. I just clicked it. I didn't look at it, but it happened to be a video where you were just like, you had your eyes closed, like you were really into it. And the lady goes, wow, but she's really feeling it. Like she's really like into it. And then afterwards, it was a comment about your voice and all that. But the initial thing was just like, wow, she's really into this. Like she can really feel it. That is amazing. So yeah, people like your worship. People just, they're feeling inspired themselves when they see you worship.
That's what reminds me of our mother posts every single time I sing. She always posts.
Oh my gosh, that's like a ministry for her. She's first of all the president of your fan club.
Singing blah blah blah. Adriana's and friends singing blah blah blah.
Mom is the president of your fan club. Dude, you don't even have a fan club, but mom is the president.
She is. It's so sweet. But she was like, Adriana, I was really thinking about like, am I being a boastful like person, like posting my daughter, and like just like, do I seem like I'm being like too much out there, like all this stuff. And then she had one of our, I think it was like either a family member, I can't remember, but they like don't even go to church. And they were like, can you make that post shareable? I want to post it on my Facebook, Adriana singing, because it touched me. Or somebody else would be like, I've watched this video like 3 times and the words of this song have really like connected me. And she was like, well, Lord, you shut me up. You told me I need to keep doing this. So like, it's weird when you don't think about how far people are like being reached, because like when you sing in a church and you're being live, you're like, okay, cool, like these people are seeing you, but you don't know who else is. But no, like the whole feeling thing, like it's like almost like a double-edged sword though, because if I don't feel a song, then Ying one time called me out. There's one song I had to sing, and I was kind of like going through the motions singing, and she was like, I can tell you weren't that connected to that song.
Oh shoot, I really said that? My bad.
Yeah, and I was like, that's okay. My boyfriend called it out too. He's like, yeah, it's not the one you feel the most connected. I was like, but it's like, it's not like I look like bored up there. I just, when I'm really feeling the lyrics or really trying to connect to the lyrics, I'm really trying to like, I look at like the song as like what is the purpose of what this song is trying to convey? So there's a song called like God Turn It Around. Ooh. And I remember hearing it over and over again to be like, trying to understand how this is working. I was like, oh, this song's like a prayer. Like every time they're like singing is praying twice, but like the way that the person wrote the song almost reads as a prayer. So I was like, okay, I guess I have to sing this as a prayer because this is what it's supposed to do. So I feel like this is where like it's a blessing from the Lord to be able to be like that, like to dissect lyrics or all this stuff, whatever. But when you really approach songs in that way of like not how you're gonna sound, but like what's the overall message I'm trying to get, like, and instill the other person, it kind of changes like how you're listening to it, how you feel it. So like it's hard if there's a song that I'm like not as like fully connected. I try my best, I really do. But it is like people who know me and know like, okay, like this is, she sounds like, okay, but like I know she's not like super into this song. So it is a double-edged sword sometimes.
Mm-hmm. When you really get into it though, you according to my friend, I posted Audrey singing a song, and I think it was like "Shall Not Want," and I posted the ending because I just love how she sang it. And my friend goes, "Dang, she's singing like she got like 3 kids, and the man just left her. Like she's singing." But I understood the sentiment. It was like because she was really into it, and it's like, but I knew you just got into the zone. I knew you found the meaning of the song. I knew you connected with that song, so I knew that's what, and that's why I loved how you sang the ending of it. But my friend goes, "Dang, she's just singing like she got 3 kids, and he just left."
Mercy. Listen. Like sometimes people think like these big songs are supposed to be like you're supposed to belt out your best and whatnot, but like you gotta really tap in deep, which is why like for worship leading you also like have to be like kind of guarded with your like heart spiritually and your life spiritually. And there's certain things now that I can there's certain songs I sing now that I sing differently than I did before, because now it's like then at the time I would not have been able to connect emotionally or spiritually to like this message, but now I've lived a little bit of life where I'm like, oh, I understand like where this is coming from. And that's like all the Lord to like afford me the experiences to overcome with him, to be able to understand a little bit more of like what this emotion this artist was trying to convey.
If Sissy, you can tell me, I'm going to ask you a simple question. All right. And the simple question is will you be okay if I get a little bit vulnerable with you and touch on a bit of a vulnerable time in your life?
It's like you're right here, girl, because I was thinking about that. Yeah, sure. Go for it. Yeah.
You start speaking about it, and then let's see if we're really connected.
Let's see if we're really.
Let's see if we're really sisters.
The sister to Leftley, yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah.
By the way, who was Tia and who was Tamara? I just want to know. No, just kidding.
What are you doing?
I'm just kidding.
I'll say Darien's Tia.
I knew I was gonna say that too. Darien's Tia and I'm Tamara.
I'm Tia.
I see it. Yeah, I can see it.
Really? And now that makes sense.
Tia was the old. No. Yeah, like she was like the more like calm bookworm type. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I feel like Darien, you have a calmness zen to you.
Yeah, not the bookworm part. The bookworm is not me, but
Tamara was very bubbly. Yeah, and when I was younger, I was so like I was on steroids with how bubbly I was.
You know how they came up with like that 5 hour energy drink? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Audrey had that in her DNA. I think they took it from her DNA, like her blood.
It was a little
because that chick was just like. And then the worst question you could ever ask Audrey, and I say this with all love, Sissy, but the worst question you could ever ask her back then was, "How was your day?" Because she started from the moment her eyes opened.
I woke up today, and then I got out of bed, and then it's terrible. It's terrible.
But you know what? That was a blessing at the end of the day. You're just a happy kid. So, you know,
happy, but
you were a happy kid. So that's a blessing at the end of the day. I'm so sorry I went through my teenage angst and I shut that down. I apologize. Publicly, I am apologizing to you.
It's A-okay. It's A-okay.
All right. So let's see if we're here.
So I feel like I'm trying to think like where to even start, like what you're thinking about. Well, I guess we'll be like even more vulnerable. I was in a long-term relationship, and post that relationship, I was definitely always involved in worship leading prior, like because I was like in this long relationship while I was worship leading. But when I ended that relationship and had to go embark on this new journey, I really did feel like lost. I really felt like I didn't understand like what I wanted to do. I felt like the Lord was guiding me on a path that I knew that I had to like exit this thing and move on to another, like just portion of my life. And I say that because like all the things that I do now, I don't think I would have done within that relationship, just because I realize now, and this is like no shade to the person, but I realized that I was limiting myself and kind of just guarding my own shine to not make the other person feel bad. And when you do that, you kind of limit your bit of your potential. You kind of limit a little bit of your capability. So there was like, I think after I exited it, I felt like, well, what do I do now? Like, what does this mean? Like, what is life? Like, I don't understand. And I feel like there's a lot of moments with God where like I was either like really wrestling of like, I'm following you. I don't know where we're going, but I'm following you. And when you go through that kind of like bluntness with the Lord, I guess direct communication of like how you feel, just so many emotions to unpack, whether it be like resentment, whether it be anger, would it just be sadness. And some songs after that kind of took on so much different meaning. And because like I think when I really got into singing at the church that I sing in now, and I sing at different churches in the DMV, but the church that I mainly sing at now, I remember the first time I sang there, it was the song More Than Able. And I think it was like, the lyrics are like, how are you like forgetting that the Lord is more than able to help like you overcome so many different things? And then the beginning is like, why do I tend to forget like all this different stuff? So like at the point where I come into the song, it's kind of like she's reconciling with the fact like I got my confidence back. Like I'm starting to feel like this strongness within the Lord. And I feel like that shifted, like that's part of the shift for me. To really be like, okay, like I'm trusting the Lord, we're moving on. But that time of my life really exercised my faith in a different way, because like once you think you had the roadmap to your life and then you kind of have to check it out the door, you're left with like, I'm a planner. Like I planned when I planned when I changed my major, I planned going to grad school, I planned moving to Maryland, I planned all this stuff. And then once you achieve all these things and then you end a relationship, you can't plan anymore because you don't know where you're going. So you're like, so truly think that like that season really shifted, I think, how I sing now, because like there were just some moments where I was like, Lord, I have no choice but to trust like where you're taking this, where you're taking me. Because if I thought I had control this whole entire time and I don't. So I think that's the season she's like probably was thinking about, that was like the most like formidable development, I think, for me.
I was thinking about that, and I thought about another time actually beforehand, and I thought about when you came back from college, because unfortunately your final year of college, right, a global pandemic hit.
Yeah.
I, as your sister, I've never seen my sister in such a state, of like just just so quiet into herself, right? Because that was your senior year and you were doing it. You were gonna leave Andrew, like well, first of all, you left a mark already at Andrews, but you were leaving, like you were just doing it. You were gonna leave that mark. You were gonna do all the things, and for the pandemic to come and just the world to literally shut down, I saw you kind of shut down. And one thing that I noticed is that you weren't, it was the music. The music wasn't a constant thing in your life during that time. It wasn't a thing in everyone's life during that time. But at that time, I started going to a church where like a cousin of ours attended, and they had like a little praise team. And I asked Audrey to come sing, and Audrey did it, but it wasn't as fulfilling as it was in the past. And so
Yeah.
I think I'm bringing that up, and I'm glad you brought up that season of your life, because I was thinking of that, because you needed to get back to this. You needed to get back to the season. But I think if I can be so bold in my reflection and say, like, every time you went through a lull, music wasn't really involved in your life, but you would have little moments where music could come back. And I think that was God's way of saying, hey, this is where you actually thrive here. This is where you are. This is where you are the you that I created you to be. This is where I need you to be. Because even with that little like praise team, like you were in it, but you were committed, but you weren't really committed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was because at that time, like I think I did this thing where like you do your faith was connected to your works, so then you feel worthy in your relationship with the Lord because you do all these works. And so then once you leave and you're no longer doing those works, then you're like, well, like, how can I be worthy of this relationship with the Lord if I'm no longer doing these works? So I really, like, the pandemic was a time for me to reconstruct, like, where my relationship with God stood, how it was gonna continue, and like how personal it was going to be. Because like I was like, what worthiness have I am of His love and His grace if I'm not even doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which was supposed to be like this ministry thing. So I really had to like deconstruct that a bit. And like I think I saw this. It was a Christian artist. I can't remember who it is, but they're talking about like finding your mission in life. And they're like, he was like, well, my mission and my purpose in life isn't doing like singing ministry. And someone was like confused, and he was kind of explaining like, if I were to put my identity in my journey only into me doing singing ministry, then what happens if like, I think he plays the guitar, so like, what happens if I break my fingers? What happens if I can't sing anymore? Like the whole purpose of like now my life and my why is supposed to be having the posture of your heart, you know, to be reflective of the Lord. So I think for me, because I didn't do that, I lost so much of my identity. And then I got to a point where like I would sing here and there, but I thought like, you know what, Lord, like, yes, I'm not meant to continue and worship in the capacity that I was doing in college. And maybe that was just like my season. Like I was like, I think this was just my season. And then when I finished grad school, I think I moved here, and then I got invited back to Andrews to continue to do like as an alumni, we're coming back to do worship night. That's when I felt like my cup was being poured into again, of like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And I remember being like, okay, like maybe like in this context, like only I'm supposed to be doing this. And then I think slowly as like, because I was still going through like, it was like different lulls at different times, but I was still connected because it was like pandemic, then grad school, then I move here. And then like I get into this breakup. So it was just like kind of like all ebbed and flowed when I think about it, interconnected. When I started getting more back into it, I think the Lord knew that I needed this final piece to really like let go of how that Adriana was in thinking, let go of that mindset in order for this new mindset to take place. And unfortunately, the person I was with could not come with me in that change, because it was just not going to be, I was never going to actually let go and become this person who I am right now. But yeah, music, I think, has been such like a big connector. I connect a lot with like, if I feel something, I'm like, oh, this is how I felt about the situation, I can find a song. And I think that like through all those ebbs and flows and the lulls and the highs and whatever, finding myself back into worship leading, I had to fall back in love as to like what songs, what worship was like connecting me and enhancing me in my life. Not how good it sounded, not what if I can belt this song, not like, you know what I mean? Like I had to find music that made me want to worship again. And while doing that, I also had to like seek the Lord, like, you know, in each day. So it's like, you can hear all these songs and they can sound nice and they can have a nice message, but like, what is something that like, I had to really find stuff that was really impacting me, and everything that I listened before felt a little bit too fluffy. Felt like I wasn't actually like lamenting. I don't think we talk about lamenting enough. I think we really need to, like, that's like a big thing. I'm like, we don't lament enough as humans, especially in worship.
What is lamenting? Let's talk about it right now. What is it?
So I think of lamenting as like, I think it's like the story of Job. I think that's like the biggest like form of lamenting, like losing everything, but still being honorable to God in that loss, grieving, mourning, while still worshiping. I feel like it's like such a, and I could be like, somebody could look up the actual definition, but I guess that's like how I interpret lamenting, of like within a season of sadness and mourning, still worshiping. Like that's kind of like, I think of songs like It Is Well was written when a man lost his whole family.
Yeah.
Like there's another song too that sounds so upbeat, but I think it's Above All. That's written, it was supposed to be written from a sad place, and we sing it like more upbeat now, but it was written from originally a sad place. there's a lot of music that is like so great of like talking about how you've been so good, like and talking about the goodness of God and all those stuff, and like it was great. But like there's that song like by Maverick, Wait on You.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna like wait on the Lord. I've tasted your goodness. I've trusted your promise.
Mm-hmm.
And like even that, like that still like has a happier ending of the song, but I feel like I had to go through that season of like lamenting, of like I'm mourning what happened. I'm mourning what I thought I was gonna live. I'm gonna be in this anger. I'm gonna try to like communicate with you as in the midst of it. And it's like messy. It's not as clear cut because it's like it's not as catchy worship songs, because catchy worship songs are supposed to be like upbeat and fun. But those worship music, that type of worship music was something that I was connecting to more. So yeah.
Joe, do you have a
I would
question?
like I will just the two things you said. I'll go back to the well, I'll start with the part with like the music. You know, it's interesting, like you say, like lamenting specifically, because I really I guess want to highlight just with like worship, you know, it's something that is vulnerable, you know, like it's a vulnerable space, right? And I really question, like, you mentioned lamenting, like more so, is it because like that's where it's like you said, even in the mix of like, you know, you're grieving and your sorrow, like that's you at your most vulnerable, but it's also that space where it's like you and God could really, really like connect on a deeper level. And I think it's that deeper level that he really wants to connect to on. So I yeah, that definitely makes sense. I definitely agree with that. And then also the other thing that you were saying before about like, you know, I guess the transition of like the season, like you were coming from to the season that you were going to, and like just how some things just couldn't come along to the new season. I remember I was doing a devotional yesterday, actually last night, that was talking about the parable of like the vineyard and like, you know, the vines producing fruit. And they were saying like there's always a pruning process, you know, that, you know, vineyards have to go through, where it's like, you know, you'll see vines and like some of the vines can have like, you know, vines wrapped around other vines, but sometimes those vines can often restrict nutrients to the fruit. And they were saying like how sometimes the roots will have to dig much deeper into the soil to do extra work to pull in a lot of extra nutrients, which honestly, like sometimes that could also restrict the fruit growing. And the one thing that they said that was kind of interesting was, even though like the vine that you have to prune off to let the fruit kind of breathe in a sense, that vine may actually be healthy, may actually look good, but sometimes you do have to sacrifice some of the good to further produce the fruit or further grow the fruit. So you just saying that kind of just made me think back to like that parable, because some things, it sounds like a lot of things in your life that were probably fruitful or looked good or healthy in one space, like now that you're in a space where it's like it's time to grow, it's time to produce more, like had to like be pruned away, and you also had to be pruned in that process as well. So yeah, I guess the question really for that is like, how, like, did you know like it was like a pruning process like along that journey, or like what at what point did it kind of, yeah, like did you know like it was a kind of a pruning process?
I feel like no. I feel like I did not know initially. I think now I have a better understanding because like you hear songs like "Refined Fire," like I want to be tried by fire and purified. We sing these things and we think we want these things until you're in these things. And I think for me, like at first, it just felt like I just could not catch a break. That's what it felt like at first. Like it was like I cannot like catch a break. Like I'm getting hit with something over and over again. And so then like I think as I was in like the post breakup mourning process, I think I was starting to understand that like something was moving in this way because of something better. And then when I really started getting more involved in ministry and more like involved with like getting healthy and getting active and like running and like stuff like that, and like connecting with things that used to fulfill me before, I think that's when it started hitting me like, oh, like all this could not have happened if I was still in this space. So I think at that point, like towards the end, it was starting to become clear that like, okay, like this is this is a purification process. This is a pruning process. Like, I'm going through this because like I can't reach this point. I can't go to C if I don't go past like B. You know what I mean? Like, I'm at A, gotta go to C, gotta get past this B part. So I don't think I knew at first. It just felt stressful, and then it just felt like, God, like I remember just being like, is this my life? Like, is this supposed to be my life? Like, am I supposed to be doing this? That I was like, maybe this is my lot in life that I'm supposed to live this way. And I just felt the Lord being like, no, this is not what it is. So later on, yeah, when I look back on it, it's like very clear now that's what it was. And I think we go through different pruning processes for different things in all our seasons. Like, I think I'm being pruned in a different way now, not in the same type of way that I was before. So now I'm like, Lord, I understand. Like, this needs to happen. Like, you're preparing me for something later. So it's like nice to know that like there's purpose within this pruning. But the first time that I really felt like I was like going through it, no, I didn't think it was clear to me what was happening.
Yeah, like that's interesting because I your story sounds a lot similar to like other stories I've heard before of like, you know, just transitioning from season to season. But I feel like that one thing is always common where it's like being aware of it like always comes somewhere towards like the end where it's like you're about to transition. You know, so I thought that was always that's interesting. Like, you know, that awareness comes in because I think that also prepares you for the next season too. So yeah, it's interesting.
Actually, as you say that, now I think about going back to like the pandemic, right? So the pandemic hits, right? Audrey, you have to come back home. You have to finish literally your bachelor's at the house, right? And then you started grad school. And then you started getting your speech language pathology, like master's, like that degree. Interesting enough, like Job, as you said, like sometimes when things are happening, it's because we're about to transition into something else. I was just thinking about it as like you guys were talking. I was like, imagine if the pandemic didn't hit and Audrey was still singing. Would she have? How would grad school would have worked for her during that time? Because the one thing, first of all, I remember your schooling experience. That wasn't easy. You had trials and tribulations. I mean, if it wasn't with a class, it was with a professor. And if it wasn't with a professor, it was with an internship. Like, it was like all three areas. I was like, what? And you were only in school for 2 years. That's like, dang, I feel like every semester you were just getting hit with something.
Listen,
like,
if you don't have to get a higher level degree in what you do, don't do it. Like, if you don't have to. I'm always like, listen, grad school and like job is in like, you're currently in like a doctoral degree. Like, it's not for like the weak. Mind you, that's not to say you cannot overcome it, but like, if I didn't have to get a master's, I would not have gotten a master's. If I didn't have to. Like, it was not like I just want to achieve all these things. It was like I cannot get my C's and be an SLP without a master's. Oh my Lord, yeah. No. Trying times.
Yeah. It was a trying time. So I was just thinking about that. I was like, well, what happens what happens if singing was still prevalent for her during that time? How would you have faced those issues? Would you have faced those issues?
Yeah.
Oof, that's a good thought. Like, what if? I feel like I probably wouldn't have been as like sincere of like what my relationship is with the Lord, because like I think that like when you're singing, sometimes you're on this high like all the time. You're like, wow, like this is amazing. I'm like helping people. I'm connecting with friends. It becomes really fun, and it should be fun. This is not to say it's not supposed to be fun. It is fun now, but I do think it was like a superficial layer that I was like not fully in a deeper layer yet. So I think that like I probably like the moments that I was having with the Lord when it came to my grad program were very much like, listen, like we just gotta make it through. You gotta make me like you gotta help me get through this. Like you got to like we can't do this. And I don't know like if I was that real before, because like I started grad school like after months of being in a pandemic. So you kind of have a lot of thinking, a lot of reconciling you do with yourself, and a lot more honesty when it comes to the Lord. I think that like if I was going through grad school without those like pre-feelings that I had or those pre-moments and experiences, I think I probably would have been like trying to exert more control, trying to exert like I probably would have gone like mentally not in the best space, because it's like you don't get in a good space with being that stressed in general, but it probably would have been worse because I would have thought like I'm in control and I could do all these things and I had to be like a certain way for the Lord, and it would have become more and more like disingenuous, my relationship with the, like, you know, and if that was disingenuous, embarking the next step of like moving and being on your own would have been even worse. Like I don't even think I probably would be as involved in the church if I was not like, you know what I mean? Like if I had this disingenuous relationship this whole time in grad school, and then I go and move to try to really exercise like your faith at that point, if it's not there, then it wouldn't have been there, and I probably wouldn't be as involved as I am now, or feel like a desire to be involved. Because like here's another thing: you don't have to be. I've chosen to be this involved because I like to do it, and I think that this is like something that I enjoy. But like other people, if you have a great relationship with the Lord, you don't have to do 20,000 different things in the church. You know what I mean? Like it's just this is just happens to be the way I show it by being involved. So because this is the way I show it by being involved without burning myself out, I probably wouldn't have been like going to church like from week to week as I do now, to be honest. Or feel like even inclined to feel because I got involved with singing more and being in churches and praise teams and really working with like different worship leaders that I respect. It helped me understand that like, oh, to be like a person that's like demonstrating their worship in front of a congregation, you also have to be doing that in private. So like those all these little things connected of like having a better relationship, really trying to dive into scripture a little bit more, like, and trusting that I wouldn't have done any of that if I was just in my house, you know?
Yeah, this is very true. Very true. You know, I love that you said that, actually. I love that you said you don't have to do 20,000 things in church to show that you have a sincere relationship with the Lord. The culture that the three of us grew up in, right, in surrounding the religion that the three of us grew up in, right, there is that culture of like, you have to do something. You always have to do something. And even on the day of rest, you have to be doing something. You have to be going and giving out materials, right? For people to know Jesus. You have to be running a Bible study. I'm like, this is supposed to be Saturday, is supposed to be the day of rest. Y'all not resting. There's like so many activities happening. And I remember I was on a church board and I said this. I was like, why do you guys shove everything on a Saturday afternoon? When technically our Sabbath is from sunset Friday to sunset Saturday. Like, so, but this was a different church, a different culture, you know what I mean? And I was also frustrated. And the Lord answered I didn't say that the Lord did this for me, but when the pandemic hit, I was one of the privileged people to say, wow, I needed this rest. I needed to stop doing 20,000 things in the church. I need it. And that doesn't mean that I wish for the pandemic to happen. That doesn't mean that my heart still breaks for those who lost people in the pandemic and all that. That's why I said it the way I said it. I was like, I was privileged enough to have been safe and to have also had that opportunity to reflect and say, wow, I didn't need to do the 20,000 things to show that I love the Lord. If anything, the pandemic, that's for me personally, that's when God was like, so what are we doing? I was like, what do you mean what we doing? I'm out here being the youth director. I'm out here doing this and that. And it's like, God's like, no, but what are we
doing? Yeah.
What are we doing? What's our relationship? Where are we at, homie? And I was like, oh, not, something when Joe, was it you and I talked about this last week? It's one thing when God, what was it? It's one thing when God humbles you versus when God, what was the other word that we used? Do you remember?
What was it? It was one thing when God humbles you. Dang,
and then when
he
cuts you down because of the prophecy in Isaiah. Like, he cuts you down. It's another thing when God cuts you down to like help change you, to help refine you. Kind of going a little bit with the theme, right? It's another thing when God humbles you, and I felt God humbled me. I was like, dang, I was better off being refined. I was better off being cut down. But that sentence, Audrey, it just, as you could tell the way I'm talking, right? I really resonated with that, because it's like, you don't need to do so much to showcase something. This is just my way of showing that I love the Lord, and this is one thing I would love to do to praise and serve Him. And I will take it so far and say, is you're answering a calling, because like I said, when you were one, and now I think about it, I'm like, oh, I saw this come out actually at one. Little did I know that I was having a little foreshadowing moment, right? You and that really adorable onesie with the little knots for your hair, right? And you're just singing. You're just singing and you have that smile on your face, and it just seemed like it made sense for you. That was a calling placed on your life. And so good for you for answering that. Did you want to say something?
No, I was going to say that, well, I do believe that the Lord has used singing as an avenue in my life for a calling. I just want to say that I think that a lot of times people think that this calling has to be like this big spiritual gift that the Lord bestowed upon you, and this is now you have to answer the call. And I just want to say that I think that we're all called in Christ to show his message and like try to connect with people. It's up to us to figure out the avenues and the spiritual gifts that he's bestowed upon us, how to do that. Because like I think a lot of times people have put so much identity in their calling of like, well, I'm a minister, I'm a worship leader, and this is the calling the Lord has given me. And this is not to say that the Lord did not give you gifts to do that, but I do think that like sometimes it like almost alienates people who feel like they don't have like this big gift to have this calling, when at the end of the day, like we're all called in Christ, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And like I do think that the Lord made it very clear, like this is the avenue that you probably are going to use for the rest of your life, because I do think this is like something that is a blessing to have. But whoever's like listening, I want them to know that like you are called as well. We're all called as well. And like it doesn't have to be these big grandiose gestures or you even being up in the pulpit and the main thing. Like there's one thing that I've learned about like my like current like partner right now. He's very much of a different personality of me, of like a lot more quieter, a lot more reserved, but it doesn't take away the action that he does. And I think that I learned a lot of like, we as Christians have sometimes put so much like importance of showing up and doing like the evangelistic series or being like this or being a deacon or being whatever. But like the calling goes beyond the church. The calling goes in like your everyday life. It's like the same thing like worship. Like I worship on this pulpit and this stage every week and it's like that's where I worship, sure, but also like worship's supposed to be like a lifestyle, you know? And I think your calling is supposed to be like your lifestyle as well. Like it goes beyond of you just being like, I'm a Christian and I'm going to tell you about Jesus. It's like your actions, you know what I mean? So yeah. I don't know, when you were saying that, just made me think that like if anybody's listening, like my calling is not for me to sing. My calling is to just, you know, be a sister and a daughter in Christ and try to like show the love of Jesus and like treat others as I would want to be treated, you know, like, and, you know, like the following all those rules. And then like viewing that through singing has been like something that I found, you know, and then like people can find it too by doing like food drives or you connecting with your coworkers each day or you like, just doing something, a small kind of act. It's like, you know, like that's answering the call, you know, that just made me think about that. Like I found my avenue of how I want to do it and it might change. My avenue might change in like years to come. As of right now, it's this. And the Lord, I don't know. Like, let's say if the Lord gifts me with the ability to write a song, maybe that'd be another way. Or maybe the Lord maybe not have me in music to like do that. I do think now it's the main avenue. But I don't know, I was just thinking about like other people who think that like you have to be like these big mainstream people to answer these calls when the call is not exclusive. You know what I mean? Like the call is not just
right. Yeah.
For like me, like this is answering a call by doing this podcast. This is answering a call. You guys have decided the avenues to connect with people, to talk to them and talk and bring other people. And whoever's listening is receiving that message, you know? I don't know. It just made me think about that.
No, absolutely. And actually, this is I'm so glad that you said that because I was just thinking about in the work that I do with therapy, right? In the past, I've told people, I've had clients struggle. They're like, what's my purpose in life? What am I supposed to be doing? Because we put such emphasis in society, especially in American society, like you got to be doing something big. You have to be influencing like thousands of people, or you have to have this title, right? This job, right? Or this amount of money or these amount of benefits. And I think if I'm recalling correctly, there was just one time I said, Maybe your purpose is just for you to just live the best version of this life that you have, this life that you were given. I'm like, don't sleep on the small stuff. And that's the thing, we sleep on the small stuff. And if I can take what you're saying, Audrey, just rephrase it, like, the little things matter. Be kind. That's a call in itself. That's a purpose in itself. There's so many meanings out in the world, right? So, like, be kind. Hold the door for someone. I've said this in past stories, and this is just a story I just love to repeat over and over again. It was years ago. This came out maybe 20 years ago in the paper or so, and a man was confessed to almost committing a terrorist crime. He was at the airport. He was feeling down. He was just so upset. And you know what happens with misery? Misery loves company. Hurt people, right? When you're in a bad space and you're just angry, you want to lash out, you're going to take as many people as you can with you. And he had this plan to, I think it was to blow up a plane. And he was at the airport, and a woman was sitting across from him, and she smiled at him. And she said, "I hope you have a good day." And just said something kind and went on her and it turns out she was on the same plane as him. And that right there, his guilt got the better of him, and he went and turned himself in. And they're like, "What stopped you from committing this crime?" And he goes, "That lady right over there just saved everyone's life because she smiled at me." We don't know who the lady, what was her name? I don't recall her name. No one's highlighted her title, her job title. No one highlighted the salary she's making. No one highlighted the benefits that she has. No one highlighted, if she was a Christian, what position she holds in the church, right? No one highlighted that she was like this amazing evangelistic series speaker. Nothing like that. What was highlighted is that she just did the most simple thing ever. She smiled at someone, especially someone that she noticed across from him having a terrible day. So don't sleep on the small things of life. That right there it can be your purpose. Get up, go to work. The Bible even says that. Live that chill life. Go to work. Don't be gossiping about people. Try to love others. That's it. That's all you got to be doing. Stop making it bigger than it has to be. So I feel like that's what you said, but I just
No, it is the truth. It is the truth. It is the truth. It's exactly what it is.
That's what I heard, at least. That's what I heard.
No. That's the system. Yeah, no, it's true. And I think that like people like in your vocation as well, like I think people think that like you can only show like your Christianness through like church jobs of like being a pastor or being like a lay worker or whatever. But like I remember doing something for the I had to sing for like the NED's like HR conference or something. And everybody's like has church positions here. At these conferences, they're like, I'm in this conference. And they're like, what conference are you? And I'm like, I'm a speech language pathologist. Like, I'm not in a conference.
Say that with your chest, girl.
Yeah, I was like,
say that with your chest.
And we were like, it's just a singer. Like, I was just like, I'm not, they're like looking at my name tag. And the guy, one of the men that I was talking to, I was like, oh yeah, like I'm just like a speech language pathologist. I said it like that. And he's like, well, you're not just a speech language pathologist. Like, we need those. Like, we need that. Like, just because you don't have a church position doesn't mean we don't need you. And like, it was so small, but it made me really think about like, we really be downplaying what we do for like work and stuff like that, just because it's not like obviously like Christ connected. Do you know what I mean? Like something that is super Christ connected is like, you're a pastor, you're a singer, you're like a secretary for the church, you're a deacon, you're like all this stuff. Like all this stuff is so Christ connected. Oh, like their vocation is that. But like, it's so true that like what you do in your day to day, even what I do for my day to day, like is still like connected in Christ because I'm connected in Christ.
Talk about what you do for your day to day. Now this is where you get to talk about the speech language pathology. Talk about it. Break down the degrees. Break down the licensure that you have and all that. Because Adriana, you have so many letters at the end of your name. Like,
I don't. Don't make the people.
Alphabet.
It is. So my formal title is Adriana Santana, CCC-SLP, which just means I have a certificate of clinical competence when it comes to speech language pathology. In other words, I'm able to operate as a clinician to help people when they have communication disorders. So that could be as it comes to birth, when it comes to children not speaking on time. So I did a lot of like early intervention and early language development. You can do up to geriatrics. So there's people I know that work in skilled nursing facilities and help people who may have like dementia or any other type of like cognitive disorders and everything in between. That's what the speech path can do. You can work when it comes to school, private practices, outpatient clinics, hospitals. You probably don't realize how much they're out there until you need one. We're kind of like that profession.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you had a father, grandfather, grandmother, whatever, who had a stroke, they usually go see a speech language pathologist to help rehabilitate how much language they have. And we do it as small as like having little Timmy who can't say his R's. We work on him for him to say red instead of wed. You know, like that's how broad the field is. So currently right now, I previously worked in a private practice and my age levels was basically 1 year to 6 years. I would say that was like my age range.
Mm-hmm.
Loved the babies. The babies are so cute. So I was teaching, like helping when it came to language development, whether that be using baby sign language or using augmentative alternative communication, which is an AEC or like a device or like a PEX board, like a picture exchange device, stuff like that. Or we came to like articulation. So like that's what I did before. And then I kind of still do this now within a school system. It's just like more paperwork. It's not as independent. You kind of follow the school rules. And my grades are from pre-K to 5th grade. I don't have too many like 4th or 5th graders because usually by the time in school, they're kind of really trying to push the kids like to be more independent and hopefully they have achieved all their goals. So right now I work with a bilingual school for 2 days a week. So I'm working with kids in Spanish and English and kind of deciphering whether they actually have the language issue. So some kids who are predominantly speaking Spanish, they're misdiagnosed with language delays. When they don't have a delay, they just speak Spanish. So because they're only being assessed in one language. So I kind of help when it comes to total language development to make sure it's not just one thing or the other. Still help with articulation and still help with kids who need alternative modes of communication in general. So that's a whole mouthful, but that's what essentially what I do. A lot of people don't know because you either hear me as like a speech teacher or speech therapist, but speech language pathology altogether. Yeah.
Get it right. She worked hard for that title and that degree.
Right.
I did.
Very hard, very hard. And actually, I'm biased because, she's my sister, but she's good at her job because I had to do a whole presentation in Spanish and you remember this, I was practicing and I was tripping up over the words and Audrey goes, just tap out like the syllables. And Audrey, I still use that when I went on my trip.
Listen, it's all if you see me in therapy, it's like, boo, fun, that, like, let's clap, or like tapping on the table. Let's start, because those poor babies, Spanish has so many syllables and it's words. So all these kitties, I'm like, let's work on it again. So
yeah. And it was so funny because during that presentation, you just saw my hand, you just see me tapping the side of my leg, but it was really helpful. Like, I was like, oh, shoot. I was like, okay. So I was like, now I always ask you for any speech thing. I'm like, so Audrey, what should I do? Or Audrey, how does this work? Okay. This is kind of like my last big question, right? Mm-hmm. I'm learning from the beginning of this pod not to ask you 3 questions in one, right? But this is a big question and answer it in whatever shape or form, right? Did you ever imagine that God, or do you ever imagine, or how do you feel about God literally giving you a profession and a career and giving you a talent and a gift, like them being synonymous? Like, what's your reaction to that? Because girl, it's just vocals, like voice. That's just you. It's just whether we're singing in a melody or in a tune, right? Or whether we're learning how to speak. And I remember that time when Abuelo passed away. Well, before he passed away, when he had his stroke, I really did see how that seed was planted in you. And I love how you said, I want to do a profession where I can kind of see the results of something a little bit faster. That's why a lot of actually, I have some friends in my field that chose not to stick with like the clinical route of therapy because they're like, I need to see some faster results on some things, right? And that's just their preference. So thank you for highlighting that too. But what is your reaction to that? That God connected your profession and your passion together. Like, they're synonymous. Like,
You know, at first, I really didn't think about it. I don't think I thought about it at first when I was in like undergrad. And then I had to take a voice class because SLPs also help with voice disorders as well, or like vocal issues as well. So then, like, I remember taking voice class, and it was like one of those classes you either love or you hate. But because I sing, I was like, oh, this makes sense. And it actually made me learn so much more, like how to sing more properly, or like when it comes to your vocal folds and everything. But I don't think I was really thinking about how connected it was until like I would have conversations with Darien, and she's like, you know, like you talk with people and you sing with people when it comes to ministry, and you also talk with people during day to day. I was like, oh, I didn't really think about that. But it makes sense because like a lot of times, like you really have to put yourself out there as an SLP to like connect with new kids, build rapport, and feel like a bit of confidence in yourself to be able to teach somebody either language or how to say certain sounds correctly. So it does make sense like how he like put two and two together, because when it comes to like singing, like I have to be just as intentional. I just have to be just as like firm in like what I'm representing and when I'm presenting. Um, and the burnout is real in both. If I do too much of either, it's like I am burnt out. But I almost sometimes like a singing as like a it sometimes just feels like an escape, like a happy place. If I'm like really just like in it, like that's how kind of I view running. Like I'd say, but like I kind of sometimes get to turn my brain off, and sometimes with singing, I feel like I get to turn my brain off from all like the busyness of like what I have to do every single. Like you make so many decisions every single day, and then when you're in a school or you're a therapist, you make like 20 times more of those decisions. So like having something like singing as like a place of solace where like the Lord and I can just connect, especially in the moments where like I can just sing and I don't have to think about all the other craziness. It brings like a bit of peace. But it does make sense. It's one of those things where I'm like, the Lord has a funny sense of humor of how he connects our lives in ways that you don't even realize, and how he was setting up like I decided to change my major at the end of my sophomore year. I'm embarking on that in my junior year. And then I decided to be more into singing my junior year. And then like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it all happens near the same time. Like, just, you could say it's coincidence, but I truly don't. And like, the thing is, he's also helped when it came to like where I work now. I got connected where I work now because I was singing in church. Like, and like,
look at
you
that.
could think it's all coincidence, but like, I happened to meet my future boss for singing in church on a Sabbath, happened to be like singing, leading a portion. My friend's mom was watching on the live stream. She was like, oh, me, Texas, like a friend of mine that I've known for years. She's in the area. She happens to be at church at the same time. We're all happen to, you know what I mean? We're all connected to the same, like, too many things have to go perfectly for that just to be, you know, a coincidence. But I do think that the Lord has like used this to help connect me with people when it comes to like moving on professionally in my life. But give me a better understanding of singing in general and help with that intentionality. Because now that I understand like your vocal structures more, you can understand how to manipulate your voice more and like how to actually like convey what you want to convey. So I don't know, it's like I can't directly say exactly the link of like what I see. It just feels like a circle, I guess. Like it just feels like a circle. Like I don't know where it starts or it ends. And I don't know exactly like where, but it's there. I guess it's just like kind of hard to like really answer like how I feel about it, because it just feels like they're one and the same. And like one helps me with another one.
Yeah. You know, I love that you and I had this kind of, I would dare say, formal conversation, right? Because, you know, I'm your sister. Was there when you were born, right? Like, I know your life, but to now talk about it, I'm like, wow, I'm seeing your life through a different lens. I was like, oh, there was just no coincidence. Everything was indeed planned. Everything. And when you said it's a circle, I'm like, for sure. For sure. Like from you being one to singing, from you taking on starting to learn violin at 7, right? And let me have a moment of brag, because I think mom and dad would appreciate this. My sister didn't just play violin just to play violin. She was in an orchestra for like 10 years. Okay, so the girl really knew.
Listen,
She knew how
for
to
the
play the
real
violin.
violinists out there, I will never claim more than what I did, because them people are players. Players.
Yes, I understand that, sissy, and I totally respect that too. And yes, but let's just not just say like, oh, I did violin and it was just a season of my life. No, it was like a decade of your life. Like
it was a decade. It was a decade. No, and actually understanding music. It's so funny, because even in church now, I sing now to like a click track, like, and so there's, and usually like other spaces I don't. But the main church I sing at, I have like a click track, so you have like the metronome in your ear and whatnot. And I remember they were talking about like, there's one song, I guess it was like, and sometimes the track, the click does mess me up because I'm so used to like just not singing with it. But there's one point where I really got a song that was like, I guess like a little bit difficult to fully comprehend. And one of the people there was like, oh, you did music growing up? I was like, yeah, like I already play violin. And they're like, did you do the Suzuki method? And I was like, I did do the Suzuki method. And they were like, I've noticed that people who have done this method or have this background in music, it's kind of easier, or like they feel a little bit more connected to the music that's presented to them by the way they had to intake it when they were younger. And I was like, okay, Lord, you kind of ate with that. Like, because sometimes I'm like, I'm sorry that I don't play anymore with the violin, but you gave me a purpose within it to help me later. So it is super when you really think about your life, I feel like everybody needs to take a time to like think about like where you got to here, like how you got there. Like I went to Andrews. I'm originally from Massachusetts. I go to school in Michigan. I'm connected to all these people in Adventism. Then I decide to move to Maryland. There's people from Andrews. They're from there. But like at Andrews, I had to decide to be a speech language pathologist, to move and decide to like be, and I also had to be in that relationship that I was in to make a move, because like to help like kickstart a move that I probably would have done years down the line. And then I happened to work at a job that places me 20 minutes from the church that I minister now almost twice a month, that I didn't even know existed when I first moved here. Do you know what I mean? Like it's all like, you really got to think about like how the Lord, because I had a friend that was like, you may not like how you got someplace, but without that, without that journey, you wouldn't be able to reap the benefits of what you're sowing right now. So it's very like freaky when you think about it. Like all those decisions then led me to be here now. And like, I probably wouldn't even be involved. And if I wasn't involved in singing in school, I wouldn't have been hit up by my friends who sing here to be like, oh, let me know when you're ready. And then if I didn't be hit up with them, I wouldn't have been exposed. And if I wasn't exposed, I wouldn't be connected. It's like a domino effect.
It for sure is. That's like when I've had in past sessions, like people are like, I really don't like how this happened, or why did this have to happen? That perspective of like, but let's take a step back and let's look at all the things that happened. If this didn't happen, then you wouldn't have done this, and then you wouldn't have pivoted here, and then you know what I mean. And I was just reminded of a famous psychological theorist, Carl Rogers. He talked about unconditional positive regard, which is like not beating up on yourself, but learning how to like look at your behaviors and the quote unquote mistakes that you make as that of shift the perspective. It all happened for a reason. And I always like to tell people, no one wakes up one morning saying, hey, I want to do this X, Y, and Z. Like sometimes people do things because of certain circumstances, certain situations. And if we're talking about your life, Audrey, like your life is all about circumstances, situations, right? Everything that has happened, and it's all connected. It's all connected, and it's all brought you to just this point of today, where the age that you are, where you are in 2024, right? Of that you're now you're a clinically certified speech language pathologist.
You don't do the whole, people just say
Girl,
SLP.
allow me.
You can just say SLP. I'm just telling you what they say in real life. In real life, we just say speech language pathologist.
Okay, I'm sorry. SLP. Okay, that's true. Because it's like when mom was saying my full title when I got my master's, like, ma, that's just too much. That's just too much.
You gotta include it. You gotta.
I know. But just you being an SLP and singing on the weekends. Okay, Hannah Montana, I see you. You know, like you
we
Miley
get the
one day.
limo out front.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Sing the
I got
song,
the
girl.
best of both worlds.
Go ahead. Go ahead. But what I'm saying is like you're doing both. You're doing both, and it's not just they're two separate things. They're two amazing things. You're touching people's lives constantly. You're showing God's love constantly.
Oh,
You know what I
think
mean?
about that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Even if you never utter the words "Jesus loves you" to one of your clients or anything like that, your actions.
Yeah.
80% of our communication is what? Nonverbal, people.
Mm-hmm.
Our actions. You know? So it's just circumstances, right? Things have to happen in a certain way for us to grow, to be refined, right? And for us to finally stand exactly where we were called to stand.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's you're called to stand in front of thousands, or if you're called to stand in front of one person, it doesn't matter. You were still called to stand there, and don't be ashamed of it.
Mm-hmm.
Sissy, you dropped lots of gems. I feel like I need to have you back again because I feel
A
like we only,
lot.
right, Joab? I feel like we only
lot.
scratched the surface.
Lord.
Like we got to do a lot more digging, a lot more.
Lord.
Yeah.
I'd be like, so when I was 7, I'm just kidding.
Girl, it's not a therapy session, but
No, but like, okay, actually though, when we were talking, I was like, man, like there's so much that has transpired. So much has transpired in life. And I also want to say like this, like, I think a lot of times, I think people think that like life happens to you, but that's not like how this works. Like, I think that people believe in like we're predestined to do a lot of different things, but like this is the beauty of free will. Like I look at it as like the Lord has probably seen so many different timelines of my life based off of my decisions that I've made, and like some of these timelines maybe I will arrive to the same conclusion, some of them I wouldn't. Maybe I would arrive to the same people, different things, you know what I mean? But like life happens with all like deciding, like, you know, life happens when you like get up and make these decisions and like take control of like what you want. And I think that's something I still like struggle with each day. Like right now I'm working at, I think I was saying this to my boyfriend. I was like, man, I feel like I have like no control right now in my life because it just feels like I'm in a new school system and everything like that. But right now I'm working as like an independent contractor. And he was like, I would have to say I think this is the most control you actually have in your life. And he was highlighting how like I'm operating more independently than I would have before. I'm making more decisions on my own than I would have before. I'm like doing things a lot more things that I wanted to do in the past than I'd have before. And I think a lot of times we kind of feel like if we don't have a set out plan that the Lord is telling us like you have to do this and then this and this and this, that we don't have control of like what we can just like, you know, do in our day to day. But this is like the beauty of free will, of like deciding how you want to spend your days, but also having like a guide. Do you know what I mean? Like the Lord, I just look at the Lord as like such a guide for our lives of like, he ultimately knows all. And I'm going to try to make decisions in accordance to like what he would want and my will, like, you know, the desires of your heart, like have to like, you know, you pray to have your heart as reflective as that. But like, I think people sometimes like forget that like the Lord, as long as you're looking at him as like your compass, the decisions that you make, if you're truly trying to make them within him, you'll come back. You know what I mean? Like it'll come back to him and you'll end up reaping something, regardless if you feel like this is a tough season in my life due to whatever decision you made. You know, it's like, it made me think of, oh my God, it made me think of the Hannah Montana song. It's like, you can change your hair, you can change your clothes, you can change your mind, you can change you. You can learn to fly, you can learn to grow. It's like, but you always find your way back home. You know what I mean? Like you always find your way back home, no matter throughout the decisions that you make, if you have the Lord as like your center and your guide, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking about that when we were talking about like all the decisions and all the things, as even now, like, I think that it's so easy to look at it as like, oh, everything's predetermined, predestined. But no, I think the Lord gives us so much like ability and discernment and allows us to come to him with these decisions, you know? Because if I didn't come to him for certain decisions, I could be in a completely different space now. you know?
For sure.
True. True. Very true.
Joa, before I ask her the typical last question, right, that I would ask any guest, do you have anything, or do you even want to ask her the question? You can ask her the question too.
Oh, I get the privilege of asking the question. Oh my goodness. Well,
I kind of
sure.
like you. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Oh, dang.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, mercy. She said, kinda.
A lot of pressure. So, no, but like you kind of hinted towards it, but like I guess asking directly, like you mentioned like your upbringing and like how like you kind of got into like the space of just even just like as a worship leader, right? But like what would you say to the younger you, or what would you say to people like in that same space, I guess, like that are looking to become or looking to utilize their skill or their talent rather, or I'm sorry, their gift of singing, where they know that that's like, you know, you mentioned the avenues. That's like one of their mediums for, you know, spreading the gospel. Like, but they're not too sure. They're maybe are facing some form of, you know, anxiety or imposter syndrome. What would you say to like that person, like to kind of help them along their journey? Like, what is something that you would either say to yourself back then, but also say to that person specifically?
Oof. If I was to say specifically to me back then, I probably would have been like, you gotta let go. Like, you really just gotta let go and just go for it. One of the best advices I was ever given was like, when it comes to like just singing in general, you can't always think you gotta react. You know, like you gotta just respond. Like the Lord is impressing upon your heart to sing something, you just respond and then you follow. So I feel like I would tell myself to stop the overthinking. That's something I struggle with daily, overthinking. So I would probably just tell myself like, just don't overthink it and don't like care about what people are going to say negatively about this. I feel like that's like the biggest thing because I think that was my biggest hindrance to even wanting to move forward in so many different aspects of my life. Like there's so many different things I could be better at if I would have just let go. Like I feel that way about like speaking Spanish. Like I cared too much about like how I sounded to even like flourish because I was just like, oh, like I don't want to sound stupid. I don't want to sound this. And like now I'm like, I spent so much time going against myself when I could be like excelling even more. So I feel like I would say the same thing. Like it's the same thing with singing. Like I would just tell myself like, let it go. Don't even like worry about, don't be so focused on what other people are doing. And like, also like if you have a light, let it shine. Like your light is not made to diminish other people's because everybody has their own light. You know what I mean? So do not let that prevent you from shining. And if I was going to say something that I didn't know and that they really wanted to, I'd be like, you need to just be connected into like your why. Like, why do you want to do this? If your reason why is actually purely like intended to just, you know, share the gift that the Lord has given you, and you feel that you truly feel connected, that you want to like just worship Him in that way, then go for it. Nothing else should stop that. And I think I could say that to my younger self too. Like, as long as your why is still there, there's nothing that should be stopping you from going for it. So I would say that, like, let go of all, like, anybody can say anything about anyone, but the Lord only cares about using you as a vessel. And if you're open to that and you're open to being used, then nothing anybody could say can stop you from making the impact you're supposed to make.
Well done.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Joab.
oh my! I know where that sounds from.
That's deep. Listen, that's deep. That's so deep. I love that. That's so deep. Your why, like in worship specifically.
And your
That's
why
deep.
is also like, if you're sick of your job, sometimes you got to think about your why. Working with children is not for the faint of heart. So I always got to remember, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Like your why is like connected through all out. Like you don't have to have the most amazing like job to be like, oh my gosh, like people like think that they have to have all these crazy things to like feel like to continue on each day. Like, oh, I'll feel better if I have this, I feel that. You're always going to be searching for something. You got to have something more ingrained in you to be like your own, you know what I mean? Like your own motivation, your own push. And your why is like the biggest thing. And if your why is connected in the Lord, then that motivation is never ending. Do you know what I mean? Like, of course, it will wane. It will be tried. You will feel weakened. You will feel tired. But you know, if you have that little mustard seed in you, it will always come back. You know what I mean? Like, it's always going to be there. So, because if some people put their why in a lot of superficial things, and that's why you're not continuing with your job. This is why you're not continuing your relationship. This is why you're not continuing with like your self progression. That's like when people go to the gym and they don't have a strong enough why, they're going to quit. Like everybody wants to make a New Year's resolution and go to the gym. Okay, like I want to look good. If that's your why, you're going to burn out after 2 months. But like if your why is to care about your health, your well-being, you want it to be stronger, you're going to keep going. So like it's the same thing if like your why is Christ-centered. This is like a never end, like a overflowing cup. Like your cup will always be something is going to be poured into that cup. Even if it feels like a little drop, it's still being something's being poured in. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Do the soundbite again.
I am delivered. Oh, I'm sorry. Same thing.
That's so
Was that the
funny.
slip of a finger or something?
I am delivered.
Same message.
Well, I have nothing else to add.
This was deep. Listen,
Dang.
deep.
Lord, I was having like this was so good, and just this conversation, I knew something like this was going to happen, and this always happens to. Well, it doesn't always happen, but I love when this happens. When you start to reflect while you're having an active conversation, you're like, oh my gosh, but oh my goodness, but we can go deeper with this. We could take this on a whole nother level, and you do need to come back because there's more. There's more that we can, we can look at and explore, more gems that we can discover. But what you said so far is just, it's been amazing. And thank you. Thank you.
Honored. I feel honored. I literally was like, I don't know what they're going to ask me. Like, I haven't been living life for that long. I was like, I'm only 26. Like, I don't know. But I was like, the Lord obviously has a reason why this conversation is going to be set place. So if this helps anybody, then that, as long as it helps one person, that's all that matters.
It will. Because like, I was thinking about, I felt God even saying, God was just like, don't ask any more questions. Because one, you fumbled the first one. So I was like, thank you. And then it was just like...
Darien, give yourself grace.
But
I am giving myself grace.
And honestly, that question is like a context question. Because these people don't know me, so...
It was. But... No, but I'm glad that it went that way, because then you started talking and then it just turned into, okay, here we go. I don't need to ask anymore. I don't just let you do your thing. And those are the best conversations in my opinion. That's what I love about group therapy. When I don't have to say anything and the group is doing their thing, it's like, okay, we're moving, we're grooving. We're progressing. This is awesome. So that's exactly what this conversation felt like. And yes, you're only 26, but my dear, you have faced so much was being set up for you to get to this place. And I love this space that you're in, first of all, because I love the hair. I love that you live in Maryland, right? I love that you got a job that you really love. And I love that you got back to worship. Like this season that you're in, this whole space, I'm like, I'm so for it. This is called healing right here. This is called... That's what it is. That's what healing looks like.
It's every day. It's not just a one-off. Yeah.
And all fairness, Audrey, thank you. Also, no, not fairness, seriousness. I'm trying to catch my words. I'm doing exactly what you said. You keep saying I don't have an issue, so I keep trying to slow down.
Doug, she wants me to diagnose her so bad with something, and I'm like, you don't want a diagnosis. Like she's like, do I have? I'm like, you don't have anything. Like you don't have anything.
Listen, I just know my body very well. Okay. But Adriana did tell me to she's like, your mind works faster sometimes than your mouth, so just slow down. And I was like, okay. and tap your tap your syllabus, like your syllables out, not your syllabus, your syllables out, and you'll be fine. I was like, okay, but no one ever told me that growing up, Audrey. Okay, so
Dang.
I didn't have a degree then. How was I supposed to know?
I know, but not only that, it was the 90s. It was a different time.
There's a lot of things
That were different. That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah,
I think
Right.
each of us in our own fields, we could be like, and this is what was happening back then, and look how it's changed now in all of our fields. But all right, let me not prolong this. It's because I feel like if I say goodbye, then I'm saying goodbye to you, and not that like I don't have your number or anything.
Guys, like, we're not gonna hang up and then be chatting for like a little second. And
That's so true.
True.
This is very true. All right. I hope you were touched by this interview. Audrey, thank you again. You are welcome back anytime. Curly hair or straight hair, we welcome both. You know.
Thank you.
All right. Take care of yourselves, okay? Remember, be in tune. Peace.